The Futurians, time-traveling terrorists of the 22nd century, create a terrifying three-headed beast to remove Godzilla from history. Sadly, fate destined King Ghidorah to perish to the newly invigorated Godzilla, which begs the question, what if the effects of time travel were not arbitrary, and Godzilla was truly erased from time itself, allowing King Ghidorah to thrive within the Heisei era? What if the Futurian plan to remove Godzilla from history worked, and King Ghidorah ultimately turned good? Just to clarify, this is a continuation from my What If Godzilla Was Erased from History series. And to quickly summarize the first two parts, things did not work out well for the Futurians, who inadvertently erased themselves from time too. That is except for Emmy and M11. The former is now back in the future, while the latter is in the present along with Mickey from the original timeline and the current timeline's Mickey. There are two. They have safeguarded the Heisei timeline from threats that, with or without Futurian involvement, still would have come to pass involving Godzilla. Threats like Batra and Destoroyah. Now you might be asking, where do we go from here? I mean, wasn't Godzilla vs. Destoroyah the end of the Heisei timeline? To address the latter first, well, technically yes, but if you squint hard enough, we technically could put the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy as an unofficial sequel or expansion to the Heisei era, with the caveat that we will have to scale them to the Heisei's sizes because they're actually quite small. They're actually Showa-sized in that trilogy. But before we dive into those movies, let's first take a look at the monsters who survived the first few parts. Obviously Heisei Mothra did, and she now rests on Infant Island, awaiting for Leo to hatch. However, I would be amiss if I did not point out that Batra is also alive at this point and has returned to Earth, his mission accomplished. This might ultimately sound too soon, especially since the asteroid that was meant to hit Earth was supposed to do so in 1999. However, if we fuse these two timelines, then we must assume Mothra must have returned by 1996 and created her egg by then. Batra should theoretically be able to match Mothra's speed even in space, but I wouldn't imagine her matching her involvement in the planet's day-to-day affairs. He didn't really care about Godzilla appearing in 1984 or 1954, he didn't care about the atomic bombings, he didn't care about any number of the human wars that have occurred prior to then, and he also didn't care about larger meteors that have struck the Earth, like that of Tunguska in 1908. I ultimately could go on, but I think it's kind of clear that Batra is kind of choosy when he wants to use his immense destructive power, and ultimately how to use it. All this is to say, I don't think the Dark Mothra is going to be doing much, and I think he's just going to return to a state of hibernation. Upon Adona Island though, a young Godzilla lives peacefully with its adopted sibling, Rodan. Now by 1996, we can theorize that the natural absorption of radiation has evolved this Godzilla into something resembling his junior incarnation, though there is no real need for him to explore the outside world. Humanity's reserved aggression toward the young Saurian after the events of 1954, coupled with the abundant radiation the island presents, and Rodan's company, keep Godzilla within close proximity of the island, a cherished isolation that King Ghidorah can only dream of having. The secret main character of this series, King Ghidorah has ultimately spent the last year suffering from his victory over Destoroyah. Besting Destoroyah came at the cost of a head and wounds which have still not healed. Sure, the positive feelings and words of psychics from Japan's mainland nurtured the dragon's pride, but resentment burns hot from being forced to fight in a battle he held no stakes in. Even now, his free will could be taken away, and that constant possibility leads to fury toward those that still control him, Mickey Prime and M11 respectively. It wouldn't help also that the Mickeys would have lost their powers by now, so their ability to reconcile the situation would have been lost, further isolating Ghidorah. So sensing this hatred, Lagos Island receives a malevolent visitor, Belvera. Before we mention her activities though, I do want to clarify two things which need to be addressed to cleanly incorporate the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy as an expansion to the Heisei era. The first is this Mothra is still going to be dying of old age. We can just assume Mothras have normally relatively short lifespans. This is backed up by how long we see the Mothras last in the Showa era, for instance. The other is that of the Cosmos, who clearly are not the same guardians as Maul and Laura. For this, I will be considering Maul and Laura the same beings, merely reincarnations of the Cosmos, a process which occurs when there is a new Mothra and allows them to inherit all their previous lives' memories and knowledge. Now this is not official, nor is it supported by anything in canon, but it is a bit of a headcanon for myself to explain how the Guardians change from film to film to film while in the same timeline. With those things said, let's return to Belvera. The Dark Elias, desiring to turn King Ghidorah against humanity since Batra doesn't seem willing, makes the Hydra a deal. In exchange for freeing it completely of human control, the dragon will instead listen to her and help Belvera raise a bit of chaos. Humans dying, cities burning, normal fun to break up the monotony of Belvera's existence. And to this offer, King Ghidorah agrees. Using flying magic or the Elias' shockingly impressive technological prowess? Remember, this is the same Elias which built her cybernetic steed that not only shoots lasers, but seemingly defies gravity with its flight, breaks the Futurian shackles upon the Hydra. King Ghidorah is now free. Golden scales take to the air, a dark shadow descends upon Japan, with the populace less fearful and mostly just stunned by the Hydra's sudden appearance. Many think there must be another threat nearby, while Mickey Prime and M11 attempt in vain to control Ghidorah. It is then, as Belvera's maniacal laughter fills the heavens, that King Ghidorah just leaves. Yeah, you heard that right. No cities swelled with fire, no dead humans crying out for mercy. The dragon just leaves, shocking Mickey Prime, M11, and worst of all, Belvera. The Dark Elias screams for the dragon to return, to obey her. She is the one that freed it after all. Did it not want vengeance? You may be thinking the same thing, and while yes, he probably wouldn't be too kind to Mickey Prime or M11 if he spotted them, he doesn't really hold a grudge against humanity. While stated to be vicious and evil, this King Ghidorah peacefully existed on Lagos Island for 40 years, and that's not even in the original film. That's not something I'm just pulling out of nowhere. He didn't attack or do anything on that island, and right now that's exactly the type of existence King Ghidorah yearns for. King Ghidorah had and has no interest in being manipulated by a new entity, so he returns to Lagos, while the temperamental Belvera decides to focus on another monster as she feels an ancient Elias seal shatter, Ghidorah. Real quick, another quick side tangent is that Belvera certainly also would have attempted to sway Godzilla Jr. and Rodan. However, as you guys can probably guess, that would not have gone well. Godzilla Jr. possesses no ill will toward mankind and nothing to bargain over, while Rodan would have surely chased Belvera off the island the moment he spotted her. Anyway, back to Hokkaido, where a certain mountain range is erupting with molten fury. The Elias seal holding Ghidorah in place shatters, freeing the alien Hydra to terrorize the world, and from there, things play out like they did in the film. Mothra valiantly flies to confront the molten beast even as she nears the end of her life from old age. Leo hatches and assists her mother, prompting the Elias to reach out for help. They ask Mickey Prime and M11, but the pair no longer control Ghidorah. They can't do anything. The Elias then asks Ghidorah directly, who dismisses them with a draconic scoff. But it is their final plea to the Mickey of this current timeline that answers their call. The Anti-Kaiju division unleashes their weapons of war upon the murderous Hydra. Tanks, planes, and hundreds of soldiers are thrown into the battle, spearheaded by the aging Super X, Super X Mark II, and the newly designed Super X Mark III. Now, this might all sound impressive, and yes, the Anti-Kaiju division can unleash some immense firepower upon the Hydra. Of that, there can be no doubt. However, all this would pale when compared to the original Heisei timeline. Remember, no Futurian technology, so no advanced breakthroughs in this timeline. It should also be said that Mothra and Leo would take this opportunity to retreat. Also, remembering the Anti-Kaiju division would be overconfident, having never suffered any serious defeat, suddenly suffer immense casualties, including the loss of the Super X Mark I. Unable to stomach the loss of life, and with Ghidorah seemingly unable to be stopped, Japan recalls what is left of their forces. Mothra soon after perishes. Leo cocoons itself, while Ghidorah regains its full power, and takes to the air. Its target, not Japan, but Lagos Island. Belvera, you see, still holds a bit of a grudge. Molten fury descends upon King Ghidorah, who is thoroughly outclassed by Ghidorah in every metric. King Ghidorah can't even flee, for his adversary is far too fast. Only when King Ghidorah is nearly killed does Ghidorah's reign of terror come to an end so Belvera can gloat. She utterly berates the dragon, making note of its weakness and how she's found a new, better companion to fight and destroy humanity with. And when she orders the execution, there is a slight issue as a green blur comes in and brings the entire ordeal to a halt. Mothra Leo in his Imago form arrives and absolutely dominates Ghidorah. The only real challenge here is the Mothra has to protect King Ghidorah too amid the battle, though this the Guardian can do with ease, all the while savaging the molten beast. In a flash of light, Ghidorah is sealed upon the island, and Leo even replenishes the charred vegetation and heals King Ghidorah. Not his middle head, mind you, it's just the wounds caused by Ghidorah. He's still not in great shape at the moment. The dragon is kind of taken aback by this though, as this is truly the first act of goodwill bestowed upon him. by another. And this selfless act is all Ghidorah can think about as Mothra leaves Lugmas Island. A year peacefully passes by on Earth. That is until Belvera finds a new monstrous lackey in Ghidorah, setting the stage for the events of Rebirth of Mothra 2. And while I'd like to say there would be some grand change to the timeline here, honestly, the events of the film would mostly play out as they did in the original timeline, with the only exceptions being greater military involvement against Ghidorah and M11's inclusion in this. While both Mickeys have lost their powers at this point, the android could reasonably cross the country to assist in Nilai Kanai's investigation. The kids would be overjoyed by their new metal friend, while Laura and Maul would appreciate the backup in having a metal protector to deal with both Belvera and Belvera's especially incompetent lackeys. As for the anti-kaiju division, their major assault in the previous year would definitely have left some people hesitant to order another full-blown assault against Ghidorah, who is seemingly stronger than Ghidorah. They would enact more evacuation measures than full-blown assaults. On the monster front, Leo and Ghidorah's battle mostly follows the same path up until he is covered with Barum. Ghidorah rakes unending blasts across the Guardian, forcing cries of pain from Leo, but it is a roar from the skies which silences Ghidorah's deadly barrage. King Ghidorah has arrived to protect Leo after a desperate plea from Maul and Laura. To be honest, the pair didn't really expect anything of this. They basically asked everyone for help and they got rejected as they did in the previous year. What they and others didn't realize was that a true act of goodwill will always spark another, and such a spark now alights the air in the form of golden gravity beams. King Ghidorah goes on the offense, beams trade back and forth between the dragons of air and sea respectively. Yet this is far from an equal exchange of firepower. Ghidorah, like Ghidorah, is packing way more firepower than anything King Ghidorah has faced before, and really anything he has any right to go against. King Ghidorah is forced to land in front of Leo just so he's not blown out of the sky. Meanwhile, golden scales are charring far quicker than Ghidorah's impressively durable hide. Also, while new to the fight, King Ghidorah is also still down ahead and still suffering from his fight with Destoroyah. He can't hold out for long. Luckily, he doesn't have to. The true secret of Nilai Kanai, the Furby, Gorgo as I will be pronouncing it from here on out, sacrifices himself to spray hopeful water upon King Ghidorah and Mothra Leo. This energizing and purifying golden shower disintegrates the Barum on both monsters and unlocks the necessary power to defeat Ghidorah, Rainbow Mothra Leo, and a newly energized three-headed rainbow-winged King Ghidorah. Ghidorah opens fire, but not only does Leo block the Urubushan beam with a pressure field, but King Ghidorah unveils some of his new abilities too. A shield which deflects the Emerald Leviathan's attacks is followed up by multicolored beams which can alter the gravity of their target. For those unsure where I'm pulling this from, go check out the G-Fest 5 short if you can find it somewhere. You could also check out my short review of it here if you want some references. While Gorgo's shower was split between the pair, don't think for 1 second this means that Rainbow Mothra's new form is somehow weaker or less potent than in the original timeline. Gorgo's hopeful water acts less like a power boost and more like a purification for those that undergo the glistening golden experience. For an example, think less Vegeta giving Goku a power boost and more Shenron unlocking Piccolo's full potential. In this case, the hopeful water basically purified Ghidorah and locked his full potential. Also, there was a vast amount of water which completely missed Leo, so there should be plenty for King Ghidorah to soak in, meaning the Toxic Terror stands absolutely no chance here. The battle ends with King Ghidorah picking up a bested Ghidorah and slamming him down upon Nilai Kanai, destroying the city and its creation in their entirety. Belvera slinks away in the chaos, once again alone, something in stark contrast to King Ghidorah. For after countless years alone and countless years fighting alongside allies which were primarily only interested in his power, King Ghidorah now flies toward Infant Island with something far better than an ally, a friend. And with that, that'll conclude part 3 of this timeline, or part 1 of What If King Ghidorah Turned Good. The next part is right around the corner, so remember to leave your thoughts below if you want to see more of this type of content. If you haven't already, remember to like and subscribe. I'm Grayshot151, and I will catch you all next time. Until then, later.